gold.
It is made out of gold. This isn't the Book of Amun-Ra. This is something else. I think this may be the Book of the Dead.
The Book of the Dead? Are you sure you want to be playing around with this thing?
It's just a book. No harm ever came from reading a book.
That happens a lot around here. So what's it say?
Amun-Ra. Amun-Day. It speaks of the night and of the day. Sueyaharum hoktub sin mas ibet baya. Imatipin sumpike sitsue yatue yatue yatue.
No! You must not read from the book!
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
Vad är det?
Det är så jäkla varmt. Okay. Hello and welcome back to the return of the repressed. Very happy to sit down with you again, dear listener. Very happy to sit down with you again, Sebbe. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you doing? You're on vacation now, right? Well, kind of.
Yes. And here I am.
That's what I mean by kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the most pleasant time killing one can think of, but somebody's got to do it. And I don't know, we wanted to start off today maybe with a bit like a bit of an apology for the extension of the last episode. And I feel like we did put out like sort of bits and pieces that sort of makes people understand where we are going with these people. Like it's not just going to be a like a micro essay collection of Swedish curiosities, but we're going to see a looser network of people being shaped around Sven Hedin and then the man who we're going to talk about today, Gustaf Retzius. Isn't that the case, Sebbe?
Yes, exactly. I think in the last episode it wasn't really meant to be two parts like we had to do now because we
Right.
got a little bit not carried away, but it's so much to talk about. I mean, we gutted a lot of interesting bits as well. It's just that you can talk about Sven Hedin, for example, for hours upon hours.
Yeah.
But we had in mind to conclude the episode with Gustaf Retzius and then the society to which they both belonged.
Yeah, that's right, and that would have helped the listener a lot to sort of archive these people as, you know, sort of what is the what geopolitical purpose do they play? What like Lebensphilosophie, Lebensraum, and you know, finally in terms of like what is soon going to become eugenics, like what role do they play in this bigger Western ontological project? And this society, which we're going to talk about it at length later, but we just wanted to put it out there so you understand. So you understand what this episode is going to be about, and like what's the purpose of today's episode, and sort of what was the purpose of the last episode as well, because these ideas are going to take a massive jump at the turn of the century from academia, or like the educational apparatus, into the juridical apparatus, with the help of, Rockefeller, Kellogg's, Ford, um, what was the last one? Carnegie, right? And so on. And they're going to help send a lot of money over to Sweden to sort of start the first state
Institution.
the state institution for, and then really make Nordicism into a legal definition, sort of. And yes, this is where we're going, basically.
Mm. Yes.
Yeah, so that's now you know. You will know more, and now you will, I think, spare us the time to discuss this man then, who was only mentioned by name, and whose father was mentioned in some earlier episodes as well, who is none other than Gustaf Retzius.
So Gustaf Retzius is the son of Anders Retzius, who we spoke about before. He was very influential in the racial biology, not only in Sweden but the whole of Europe. In getting this science in quotation marks, the respectability.
Yeah, in terms of phrenology, or what they're calling it at this time, sort of craniometry, we talked about like all these words before, that they all it had something to do with the secrecy of their organizations as well. Like they sort of know that this isn't too popular of an idea. Like it's quite kind of perverse intellectualism even to people in the 1800s, I think, which is also plays into this changing of names. Like there's a sort of open cryptography involved in constantly changing the name of the science. But if we let, phrenology is the one that everybody knows about. And in terms of phrenology towards the end of the 1800s, I think we can safely say he is the most influential person, right? Wouldn't be an exaggeration?
No, I don't think so. But so just to give a quick, a brief overview of Gustaf Retzius. As we mentioned, he was the son of Anders Retzius, and his father Anders, who lived in the late 18th century until the mid 19th century, and was the Swedish professor of anatomy and a supervisor at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. And he was the one, if you remember, that came up with this measuring of the craniums. That became it was just one of a whole slew of different ways of how to measure the cranium, but his was the one that gained the most traction. And Gustaf, his son, would spend his entire life, I guess, in upholding his father's legacy.
And we've been joking about like how much of a fail son he is, but the thing is that like his dad was also a bit of a fail son, right? Like even his father was also a doctor, and I think even the father then of Gustaf's grandfather was also a doctor. So this goes back like 4 generations, right? At least of them being doctors. I mean, they're not all interested in phrenology necessarily. That's mainly Anders and Gustaf. But still, it's a profession of or a family tradition of doctors, basically, and each new generation following in the footsteps of the patriarch, and sort of not living up to the expectations of the father, right? I think it's worse for Anders, Gustaf's father, because Gustaf's grandfather was seemed to be like a real sadistic piece of shit. Like really.
Yeah, and just to bring it back to Linné, Anders Johan Retzius, the grandfather of Gustaf, he was one of these disciples
That's
or
right. Yeah.
apostles of Linné, and was
And I
taught
think
under
there's
him.
we're gonna get into some other interesting connections like to Linnea later, and like that sort of more esoteric days like the Swedenborgian time. But we need to I think sort of try to get an idea what Gustav thought the mission was as the patriarch of his father, right?
Yes. Going back to Gustav then, Gustav was born in 1842 and he would live until 1919. Um, so he did not see the founding of the Institute of Racial Biology in Sweden, but he is very influential in getting it there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and lobbying for it,
Yeah.
even though he some people argue that he was against it in the end of his life, but
We have some
as we
doubts
will,
about that.
okay, yes, but I think it's more as that he was not a part of it, and we will get to know this about Gustav, that he is very territorial
Yeah.
of his.
Yeah. Yeah, but
It's his
hmm
science,
it's
racial
his
biology.
and his father's science. Like during the time, I think of the foundation, he's mainly going around. Like this is towards the latter part of his life, right? So he's mainly going around getting money to have bronze statues of his father and grandfather made at like the big educational institutions in Sweden, and being like, I'm just donating this, for the sake of everybody. And people are like voting against it, and there's like a lot of fight. And yeah, so he's more concerned about like his familial legacy rather than maybe so much the future of the science as such, I would say. And we'll see that this as well, like throughout their life, how they move from a very sort of forward-looking liberals who have a lot of hopes for the new focus of the skull, which now at this time also starts involving the brain a lot more than it did before. We have like in the 1870s and the 1880s, of course, is the breakthrough of hypnosis, and so there's like this understanding of it's all about the head, right? Like it's all about the skull, the brain, the head, and uh, then Gustav and his wife sort of slowly, gradually become more conservative to the point of like, nationalist conservatives, and we'll see like what kind of people they surround themselves with and these things. But a very territorial man, this Gustav.
Yeah, he was born in Stockholm. He enrolled into Uppsala University, which we spoke about before, the University of Linné. But he transferred to Karolinska Institute, where his father had a seat as a professor.
Yeah, he's doing his
And
doctorate right at the time that his father dies, right? He's just like,
yes, and I think this is one of the his first like failures,
yeah,
that he never got the chance to like study under his father,
yeah,
because his father died or got so sick before Gustav
yeah.
came to his like doctorate.
There's some real mystery surrounding, like, I think the death of his father, because he had some stomach problem, and one of the most acclaimed doctors in Stockholm at the time, despite being like one of the most famous doctors, prescribed him, and like, get this, 225 gram, like a quarter of a kilo. I don't know how much this is in pounds and stuff, but like, it's a lot, right? Like a liter of milk, a quarter of that. I don't know how to describe this, but it's a lot of mercury to drink, like in a jug, basically. And of course, he died of mercury poisoning. I don't know how. I mean, I think just a few grams might kill you. And he's supposed to have been given 225 grams for like some stomach ailments. And
Yeah, so almost half a pound.
yeah, okay. Yeah, half a pound of mercury. Just imagine that. And and people are sort of speculating even at the time, like, was he poisoned? And like, why would he have been poisoned? because like it makes no sense that a doctor would prescribe that much. Even at this time, they knew it's lethal. So yeah, what this means for Gustaf anyway is that, like you said, like his father never gets to see him either become a doctor, and he doesn't get to work under his father, right? So
Yeah. So instead, he works under like a lot of the colleagues of his father,
right.
and like the scientific community in Sweden at the time is very small. So we will see that he's working under the colleagues of his father, and he's working together later with the students of his father, and it's a very like incestuous environment.
Yeah, and there is like one major
with a lot of
sorry.
intrigue.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a lot of intrigue and infighting, because the different institutes and universities only had like so many seats, and the same for all of these um, fellowships or like societies, both open and secret, that were like very popular at the time.
Right.
Usually, they only have like a because they want to be for the elites, so they don't have like open membership. Or if they have open membership, you want to be part of the board, and then it's
Yeah.
they only have a few seats, so then like all of these people are always like intriguing and fighting against each other to
Yeah, and Gustav's gonna play like this
um,
role very well, right? Like that he becomes hated towards the end of his life because he's basically a member of every single one of these learned societies in the big cities, right? And he's always trying to get himself on, like, on the board or on some kind of position of power to be able to manipulate the whole like sort of educational continent in Sweden, like the sphere of intellectual work and education and research, etc.
yeah.
And
So
I was just
yeah, I
wanted
mean,
to mention this, like the major schism, because we already mentioned that he starts off in Uppsala, but he moves over to Karolinska, which is something that his father did as well, right? And we mentioned this just briefly in the last episode, that Karolinska is the new and upcoming university. It's like a child of the 1800, whereas the other ones are, remnants in a way from like the 1500 or even before, like medieval in some sense. And of course then Uppsala is much more conservative. I would say, like, in terms of like outdated or archaic, maybe would be a better word, because you have conservatives everywhere.
yeah, just like a correction. His father, Marcus, he was um, a professor and a supervisor at Karolinska, but he never studied there himself. So he was uh, a part of the faculty there.
Okay, yeah.
But he actually studied in Lund,
Oh yeah, that's right.
because the family was from the south of
Yeah,
Sweden. But yeah, it
and that's the
doesn't matter.
the third biggest one. And
Yeah, it's all like Ivy League.
mhm.
Uh,
And so and the big one is that Uppsala is sort of at this time anti-Darwinian, and sort of is trying to update, I think, the old medicinal school of like humorism, like humors being again like a medieval remnant, and they're trying to change it to be more fitting. But it's mainly like a reactionary movement, like they don't really based. I think I didn't see any indication of them actually making any forward movement other than being sort of anti-Darwinian. This is sort of where most of the discussion lies at the time. And then he moves over to Karolinska, but that doesn't mean, again, like, this doesn't make sense, I think, in today's world of like, which sciences we think are more promising and not. For example, this about, I'd rather have a doctor who's into like humors than who's into skull measuring, like, in a way, right? Like, that would make more sense probably. But yeah, this is the new cool thing, and it probably relates to this whole new focus on the brain and everything, like we just suggested earlier. And that's why like Karolinska is interested in this more than humors.
Yeah, so his professorship was in histology, also known as microscopic anatomy. So he was very big on studying bacteria and small animals and plants under the microscope. And this is his like ordinary professorship before he starts off with his life's work regarding the measuring skulls.
Yeah, I remember there was like this part of like his early days biography, how he was like he didn't have a room of his own. He slept in his founder's study, like sort of just surrounded by microscopes and like weird insects and like cultures of bacteria and stuff. And I don't know, like it just seems like such a such a strange picture in my mind of like, you know, a little 1800s kid just like growing up in that kind of environment, you know. Like it can, maybe it sounds noble and romantic, but like I don't think it was. I don't know, like it just, it like messes with your head, I think, more than it does anything else. Like in Thomas Mann's book Dr. Faustus, it's a similar story. I think maybe he was even sort of inspired by people like Gustaf, Retzius, because it's a critique of his field in that book. And he also describes this sort of strange, you know, atmosphere of growing up among this cutting edge science, which is kind of macabre and morbid, you know, like with just parts of flesh and I don't know, like just half open animals. And I wouldn't want to do it. I don't think it sounds too romantic.
Yeah, it's really like this era in science when they have this fascination with the cutting open.
Yeah, because it's been forbidden, you know, for so long time by the church. So they think, you know, that they're kind of radical, and you know, it's kind of punk to be able to, like, you know, cut up I don't know, convicts or people who don't deserve like any sort of dignity after death and things like that. And I don't know, and like just the whole environment that he grows up as well, like with when he's, you know, young back in school. There was this one nice anecdote, sort of. I think there had like a new law had been instituted that allowed and so we're talking like elementary school up until like I think 7th year of regular elementary school and like middle school and high school. They were allowed 15 minutes of break, and of course there was like a lot of beatings and stuff like by the teachers. And there was this one kid who stood up one time in class, Gustaf remembers, and sort of pointed out to a like neurotically bad teacher that, you know, now you're taking too long of our time. Like we, by law, like by this new law, we're allowed 15 minutes of break, and like, you know, this is once during the whole day when they're supposed to eat their lunch. and the teacher just goes fucking mental on the kid, like beats the shit out of him. And then he's expelled because apparently the family of the kid threatens to bring it to the press. And of course he had the law on his side, you know. So the teacher is expelled for a while, but then later he returns apparently. And Gustaf has this other anecdote about this teacher. Later in his life, he heard that the teacher killed himself, and then he finds out why that happened. So apparently, he had continued being, you know, the notorious violent teacher, and during one I don't know, educational instance of like teaching a kid's proper morals, he'd actually beaten a kid to death in the school. And once again, this was supposed to be, or I think even leaked out into the press that had happened. And so this teacher then killed himself, like after it became public knowledge that he had beaten a kid to death. And I don't know, guess what the subject this teacher was teaching, Sebbe. It's not like, you know, it's not hard, even though it's a shot in the dark. It's not a hard guess to make.
Let me guess that he is a German teacher.
That's right. Yeah. So that's the environment. such a thriving pedagogical milieu to grow up in. Very romantic and blissful. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and we will see this as well with because it's a good segue actually, because we will talk a little bit about Gustaf and his wife and the work that they did together, trying to like reform a bit of the like school system. So of course this is a reaction to like growing up in this environment, because in his early days he's what is considered more of a like a classical liberal. It's still like, you know, a bourgeois liberal, and it's like reforming the society better for people of his class, right?
Of course.
So he doesn't give it too much thought about like the workers and God forbid the undesirables of other races. But
and I think Anna's father is even like one of Sweden's most famous Bentham followers, like one of the panopticon guy who we talked about before in previous episodes, like one of the most notorious classical liberals. Like he was the teacher of John Stuart Mill, for example, right? And so of course it's a very class-orientated liberalism.
But we can still see that like why they would react, like growing up in a school environment like this, when the like a teacher can beat the kid to death.
Over like nothing. He probably just, you know, like the other kid, reminded the teacher that, please, mister, can we have 50 minutes of break? I need to eat my butter. Just, what did you say? Fuck.
Like, oh fuck, you have to be so, you know, like castrated like beat up a kid like this. So like it's so horrible, I shouldn't laugh, but I don't know how to react, you know.
You see this face, you know, it like literally turns red, you know. It's not even animated thing to say, you know. They have zero fuse, these people. It just goes to from like 0 to 11 in like half a sentence of reminding you not to break the law of the country.
But I mean, this is the time of, you know, H.C. Andersen. So
it's true.
You know.
It's true. Yeah, it's most macabre. Children's stories.
Okay, so moving on then, we want to talk a little bit about Anna Retzius.
Yes.
Far-right party with a strict anti-immigration policy has long been considered a haven of equality and generous social welfare.
Job economic policies.
There's also rising discontent among.
When you look at youth unemployment, nearly a quarter are out of work.
Homeland, a block of ice up north. Yeah, the place I kinda used to like before. But nowadays people here don't seem to know the basics. Don't eat yellow snow, don't vote for racists. Whether they're marching in their boots at night or playing dress up in parliament in suits and ties. Cold days you might say, but pay respect to our innovative new social safety net. You get tax benefits if you wanna get them made, but if your body's broken down they will take your Medicaid. And young people, for your enjoyment, you get shit wages and insecure employment. The people have made their choice and they do not fail. Our government is now quite a tasty cocktail. Conservatives, Christians, mixed with some Ayn Rand. You wanna bash the poor, then the shit is a grand slam. Gravity, it's getting heavy. 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 Gravity, it's getting heavy.
Thank you so much for listening, dear listener. If you haven't signed up on the Patreon or Spotify, then again this is one of these moments where we will have to part for now. But if you have signed up, then fear not. The show will now continue deeper into our contemporary, modern and neo-traditional mythology. There are many things which we have unearthed that we cannot wait to tell you about. Thank you so much for the comments on the last episodes. It's a real joy to see the Patreon develop into some kind of community. And these comments, questions, remarks and additional points of interests have been the major motivation for us this summer. Especially Sebbe, since I pay him in nothing but smuggled Indonesian clove cigarettes. We are right now planning a 2-day excursion to the real archives of the world's first state race hygienic institute to gather material and open boxes which have literally laid sleeping since the 1920s, untouched. And without your social and economic support, we wouldn't be able to do this kind of research. So again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so very much.